I talk a lot of Russian economy demising. But how does Russian economic demise look like? I want you to check this out. This is just a small preview. I'll talk about this scene and how it represents the demise later in this video. The countdown to Russia's economic Armageddon has begun. Stick around if you want numbers, figures, and events, because I have plenty of those coming up. Howdy friends, my name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. Welcome to Weekly Economic Review. This is week 42 in review. The goal of this ongoing series is to document Russia's economic transformation in real time. Weekly, consistent coverage gives a truer picture than isolated headlines. Every Wednesday, I track the same core dashboard: rates, budget, fuel, revenues, layoffs, prices, industries, trade, and so forth, so you can see what actually happened, why it matters, and where the trend points. All my reports are built on verifiable public reporting, market data, and open source. No hype, just facts and context. Now, without further ado, let's jump to the analysis. The economy can be analyzed at three main levels, each with its own focus and scope. They are the individual level, called the microeconomic agents. That's something that studies the changes that economy brings for regular people, regular folks, and, companies. That's the individual level. Then there's microeconomy. It studies specific sectors or markets, and macroeconomy. It studies entire national economy. And this is how I structure my weekly economic reviews here at Inside Russia, and I start with microeconomic agents as usual. Basically, it's about what impact changes in the economy have on the lives of regular folks in, individual companies. Now, I have a couple stories for you today. I'll start with this story. Both stories are developing. The first is a specific story, and the second is kind of a more general, that kind of shows you the mood. The first story comes from Russian province of Dagestan, the town of Novokuley. Look at the main street. This is the main road at Novokuley. What happened there? Very simple, heavy rain. Nothing extraordinary. No Martians, no Americans, no evil Europeans, no Westerners landed and destroyed the road. Just heavy rain happened. Yes, rains do that, and all roads are flooded. Cars get stuck in deep potholes filled with rainwater. Now, leaving a house, not just driving, but leaving a house in Novokuley is a big problem now. Children have to be carried to schools by hands by adults, their parents. Why am I showing this to you? Well, take a very close look. This is the road, the main street of Novokuley. In 2023, 568 million rubles, or equivalent of $7.2 million, were allocated from Russia's federal budget for this particular road construction and repair. The work was planned to be completed by May 1st of 2023. Well, after all, it's not much, it's just a small piece of road. With the deadline, when it came, it turned out that only 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles out of planned 20 kilometers, 13 miles, were somewhat repaired. In April of 2025, 2 years after, 2023, another 428 million rubles, or $5.5 million, were allocated for road surface repair and restoration, perhaps a little bit of construction. And the result you are seeing right now, this is the result. There is no road here whatsoever. It's so bad, this large, huge, tank-like Toyota Land Cruiser literally, sinks into a pothole. It's not even a pothole, it's like a ginormous hole. It's not road. Roads, they're not like that. The roads are different. Roads are like flat surface, usually with asphalt. So anyway, the head of the local administration, sort of like town mayor or city mayor, he blames a clogged storm drain for what happened, for this. Clogged storm drain. Take a good look. This is, right here, this is because the storm drain clogged, it wasn't cleaned properly. According to this official, he repeatedly warned higher authorities about the problem. All those clogged drain storms. It's easy fix, And then being clogged led to that. He says that his appeals were totally ignored. And then rain came. Well, they didn't expect rain in the fall and in the winter in Russia. Well, I understand. Russian climate is like New Mexico. Never rains. Never, ever. 364 5 days of sunshine and dry weather. And all of a sudden it rained in Dagestan. No kidding. Now, did you see any storm drains at all? Again, forgive me for, going back to this wonderful picture right here. Do you see any storm drains? Because the local official says that they're right there, but the thing is, there are none. He's lying. It's actually, there is no road, just dirt path that becomes mud hole when it rains, and it rains quite often. And the head of the administration is also lying about warning higher officials. Higher authorities. Higher authorities? Who? The federal minister of transportation, Starovoyt? Well, he was found dead in his car not too long ago. He shot himself twice. Second time just to make sure that, he's dead. Perhaps the Tsar himself? This guy, the head of the administration, picked up the phone. Hey, Vladimir, we really have a bad situation here. This wonderful road that we fixed twice over the last 2 years and we spent $12.5 million for, it's just that the drains are clogged, storm drains are clogged, and there's nothing we can do. And I keep on knocking on high authorities' doors and then nothing gets done. So you do something. Huh? What do you think? That's how it happened? Now, I want you to understand that this is one of the faces of Russian economic demise. The roads are becoming bumpier and more potholes appear. On paper, the roads in Russia are all brand new. And you know what? There are so much money allocated and spent for the roads. They're all in perfect conditions, flat, pothole free. They even come with storm drains. In reality, we have this, Novokulei. And this guy is lying about the authorities because it's his responsibility. This road, he actually was given money to fix it. And now he takes blame to higher authorities. Now, notice the truck in the mud hole. I just love this video. I keep on coming. A great truck. I mean, look what's going on. I thought it would just sink in and get stuck in the mud, but the truck is actually getting out, and the driver is pretty good. And the truck is Toyota Land Cruiser 300. That's brand new. Look, it's like a tank, okay? Brand spanking new Toyota Land Cruiser. Great car. The Toyota proved once again. I'm not sponsored by Toyota. I've never owned a Toyota in my life, but I know they're great cars, right? So, what about Land Cruisers? Brand new. How much does one go for in today's Russia? Toyota Land Cruiser. Yeah, just like the one in the picture. 300, 2024, brand new. It goes for 24,990,000 rubles. Basically 25 million. 25 million equals to 317 US dollars. I'm showing you today's stock at Russia's auto marketplace called auto.ru. That's where you buy a car if you want to get it in Russia. Who can afford Toyota Land Cruiser at the price of $317,000? I mean, in the United States, that's more than a Lamborghini costs, right? Just a regular Toyota Land Cruiser. I tell you who. Those who stole the money from the federal budget allocated for this road construction and repair twice. First time they stole it in 2023, second time they stole it in 2025. The head of the administration of this godforsaken town definitely can afford. I wish I knew what kind of truck or car he is driving, okay? And his official salary is meager. It's under $1,000 per month. I'm pretty sure he's driving no less than Toyota Land Cruiser, perhaps a Range Rover. And this is why this oddities happen in Russia. On paper, Russian army is number 2 in the world. In reality, it is what it is, the paper tiger. On paper, everything is under control in the fuel market. Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Novak announced last week, just a couple days ago, that the situation with fuel at Russian gas stations is stable. Everything's fine and well under control. That's on paper. In reality, there are rationings introduced and fuel shortages. And I continue this list. On paper, Russia is everything fine, all sugar and nice and everything spice. Reality is a little different though. And this is the complete economic demise, Russia's current reality. Everywhere, including infrastructure, including roads, including maintenance, including the utilities, including the fuel industry, including the agriculture. This is the demise. Some of the roads in Russia still remain in better shape. In Moscow, they are perfect, sarcasm aside. They are perfect because Moscow is not Russia, it's Moscow. In St. Petersburg, they're pretty good also. Perhaps there are couple cities like Kazan in Tatarstan, excellent roads, okay? But in majority of Russian cities, just give it a few months and the roads will be pretty much same as right here. Well, or they will be on the way there. you'll be seeing more and more videos like I'm showing you right now. Now, I talk a lot about Russia's federal budget, and I emphasize the budget, and I emphasize that there's current deficit in the budget. Why it's so important? Well, because you see, everything in Russia now is financed from the federal budget, including the roads, including power plant maintenance, including paying salaries to tens of millions of federal employees, such as doctors, medical personnel, teachers, law enforcement, everything. There is virtually zero private investments right now. Even startups, high-tech startups, okay, that's totally private business, right? Well, in Russia, it's not. They exist on government subsidies because no one wants to invest into Russia. So everything is financed from Russian budget. And now Russian budget is in deep red. The forecasts right now for the end of the year, anywhere from 8 to 10 trillion rubles. It means a huge shortage of money. It means that everything that they have been financing, roads, that money was stolen for the most part, salaries, subsidies, and so forth, drying up. And that is complete and utter economic demise of Russian people. Now, this was the first story. The second story, I won't beat around the bush. Many Russians that I personally know who are still in Russia are puzzled and shocked and scared by the recent increase of taxes. And I'm talking about business owners. Now, the announcement was made, and I covered it in the previous reviews of this series. The announcement was made by the Russian government that starting January 2026, value-added tax will be increased to 22%. That's a very large increase, and that is the killer, true silent killer for a lot of small businesses. The threshold for the simplified taxation for small businesses will be lowered from current 60 million rubles. That's about $800,000 revenue per year to 10 million rubles. That's $80,000 per year. From 60 to 10. That's 80, right? No, I'm sorry. 600 million right now is about $480,000. I hope I'm not confusing you, okay? Right now, threshold is 60 million Russian rubles. Revenue, that's $480,000. So if you earn less than that and you're a small company, then you use simplified taxation system. But now they're lowering it to $10 million by 6 times. That will make small businesses carry so much more tax burden, and it'll make them non-profitable. They can't pay so much taxes. I have conducted my own personal survey of 11 small business owners. Now, this is fresh information, fresh from the oven, so to speak, fresh from inside Russia. At this point, as of today, 7, and I'm not going to tell you the city where they are at or cities, what they do, what kind of businesses they have, okay? That's for their own safety. 7 of the owners don't know what to do. They are dumbfounded. 4 plan to close their doors in 2026 as soon as the taxes hit. 4 people out of 7 who don't know what to do are panicking because they are operating on debt, large bank loans that need to be repaid. So closing down their companies is not an option. They must continue. And they don't know how to because the calculations that they have right now, they become non-profitable. There is no answer. And there's real panic. I heard it in their voice, and I know those people. What we're seeing right now is Russian people have started picking up the bill for Putin waging the war on Ukraine. I said it quite a few times. Sooner or later, Russian people will start picking up the bill, and we're seeing it happening right now. It's not around the corner anymore. It is right now, right here. In every corner of Russia, really. In cities, in towns, big and small. And it doesn't only concern poor people. Well-to-do ones are also very, very concerned because soon, from well-to-dos, they will become poor. Now, enough about microeconomic agents. Okay, I hope you found this information useful. Let's move to microeconomics. Let's move to the markets. Microeconomic analysis. Now, I'll start with oil and gas, and I'll try to be brief. Oil first. Something happened 5.5 hours ago. Something big. The UK has outlawed Russian oil. Huge blow. Russian oil is sanctioned. All Russian oil, regardless. This is still a developing story. I saw it in the news about 5.5 hours ago. Huge blow to Russian oil industry. Now, the French President Emmanuel Macron last week, about 10 days ago, started taking aggressive stance on Russian oil by arresting or checking Russia's shadow fleet of oil tankers. That trend continues this week. Another huge blow, and that's probably the biggest one in the recent months. The European Union has banned Russian energy. Bada bam, bada boom. Short-term contracts are being serviced right now, and they are allowed to run their course. 2026, next year, there will be no limits for short-term contracts, and 2027, complete ban on Russian oil and I guess on Russian energy, really. And this is it. Right now, there are a couple countries, Slovakia and Hungary. They're very upset about that because they've been profiting from the Russian oil a lot, from Russian gas. Pardon me, not from Russian oil. They cannot veto. This basically it's a done deal. The vote needs to be conducted, and it will be. And if most European companies vote yes, then this is it. Now, considered almost done. Huge, huge blow to Russian economy. Now to oil exports. Ongoing Ukrainian drone attacks, they happen every night now. Different refineries hit. The last time I spoke a week ago, there were 18 refineries according to my count and 16 according to the media. Now it's 20. 20 refineries in Russia have been hit. So these ongoing attacks on Russia's energy infrastructure have reduced the country's fuel exports to their lowest levels since the invasion of Ukraine. It's finally working. It's finally working. This report comes from Bloomberg, and it's a very fresh report. Average daily exports fell to 1.88 million barrels in the first 10 days of October. the lowest level since at least early 2022. Now, this different company joins Bloomberg. It's called Vortexa. That's a report by Vortexa. Russia's total refining output remains below 5 million barrels per day, and that is also the lowest since spring of 2022. Now, 20 major refineries have been partially taken out of operation. When they will be fixed and recovered, God only knows. Seasonal maintenance work, don't forget about that. Now, this is fall, the harvest is over, and this is the best time to shut down oil refinery, decrease the fuel output, and perform regular maintenance. So that also adds downward pressure because maintenance needs to be done no matter what. If you don't do that, it's just your oil refineries will just fall apart. Now, a very interesting information came from, it's about PMI index. Services PMI index. I talked about the civil industrial PMI index last week, and it slid down. Now it's about services. The services PMI, Purchases Managers Index, is a monthly survey-based diffusion index that tracks how service sector companies such as retail, transport, finances, IT, hotels, healthcare, etc., say business is changing. So they basically do interviews of business owners or business managers. Now, Services PMI is built from questions on business activities, new orders, employment, backlogs, input cost and prices, supplier delivery times. PMI index in service industry business activity dropped from 49.1 to 46.6 in just 1 month, September. From 49.1 to 46.6. It is the worst level, the lowest since 2022. Now, I am not surprised. I was expecting it. This huge drop in 1 month is another phase of economic demise. Business owners and managers basically combined telling that things not just bad, they're catastrophical. Now, I'll come back to the services PMI at the end of the live stream when I'll be talking about macroeconomics, because that's one of the big, it'll lead to one of the biggest, if not the biggest, macro indicators. Now, the next is Russian stock market. Oh, don't you love stock market? It has fallen tremendously. Now, I could talk much about that, but I want you to show 2 pictures, and basically they speak much louder than words. 2 snapshots of Russian stock exchange, Mosbirja, from February 2025 and from today. So, this is how the stock market of Russia looked on 24th of February 2025. That was the 3rd anniversary of Russia invading Ukraine. As you see, it was the highest this year, and I call this period the rally, the Trump optimism. Remember when Donald Trump called Vladimir Putin for the first time? That happened in February. And Russian markets got so excited. They started rallying because they were expecting peace deal. They were expecting that, something good will happen for Russian economy. So the highest was February 2025. And I think Donald Trump called, well, I remember he called a few days before. The index reached 3,300. Now, let's fast forward to today. And I want to show you a different picture. You give me a second. I will show you this. This is called Trump optimism is over. Or you can call it Trump pessimism. Last week, Russia's top diplomat announced that the impulse given by the America in the summer when America invited Vladimir Putin to visit Alaska. Americans called it Peace Summit, and Russians called it Putin visiting America. No Peace Summit in Russia. Okay, so this impulse ended. Peace hoping impulse ended. And Russian stock market reacted immediately. Look, from 3,300 of February, Russian stock is at 25.45 on October 15th of 2025, which is today. And forecast is negative. Russian stock market suffered the steepest single-day decline in 3 years on Wednesday. After that diplomat spoke, basically he buried all hopes for peace. Russian government said no peace. And stock market got a little bit sad. Now, I'm not going to talk much about that. I think that these two pictures, they speak much louder than words. This is February of 2025. And this is mid-October. Mid-October of 2025. I think enough is said here. Now, I would like to talk about large Russian companies that belong or are run by Putin's friends. Well, they all, the most profitable and the easiest to run, such as Gazprom, the gas companies, oil companies, they're run by Putin's friends. Now, I would like to speak of most indebted companies with the largest debt. New list showed up. Well, the new rating of the companies appeared this past week, and I think that you deserve to know. Now, Gazprom is company number one with the most corporate debt in Russia. Gazprom topped the ranking of Russian companies with the largest debts. This information comes from Forbes. I appreciate the information very much, and I trust it. I double-checked a couple companies. Everything's spot on. Gazprom leading the list. The company's net financial debt at the end of 2024 amounted to the number is too big to say. A little over 6 trillion rubles. In second place, it's Rosneft, Russia's largest oil company. This is, folks, think about it. Gazprom had always been one of, Russia's largest company, and it always made world's largest companies top 100 list. It was always profitable. This is the first time it shows negative, the red, it's in red, and it's incredibly indebted. Yeah, the biggest debt in Russia right now. Now, the second place is Rosneft, oil company, natural gas company in oil. All you have to do is stick a pipe into the ground and transport whatever comes out of it, either oil or natural gas. And the thing is, you didn't even have to build the pipe. The Soviets, 40 years ago, they built, they developed the extraction fields and they built pipes. So all you had to do is just sit there and look at the pipes and count the money coming in. That's all. Rosneft, Gazprom. Same goes, the company number 3, Russian Railways, RZD. So Rosneft's debt is 3.6 trillion rubles. Russian Railways, 2.7 trillion rubles. Again, Russian railways were built by the Soviets long time ago. All the Putin's friends had to do, own it, operate it, and just do nothing, basically. There are many professionals that run in themselves, basically. Just don't stand in our way. Well, that's not how Putin's Russia works. Also on the list, Russia's largest companies, really, they're most indebted. Atom Energoprom, that's the group of companies that basically builds and maintains and operates Russia's nuclear power plants facilities. Baltic Chemical Complex, that's a huge chemical company, group of companies. State Transportation Leasing Company, N Plus Group, an energy company. Norilsky Nickel, the producer of nickel, one of the biggest in the world. Sibur Holding, huge chemical holding company, not just one plant, but a number of plants. And Avtodor, roads. All you have to do is maintain roads. Why do you have to borrow, for goodness sake? You don't do anything. You get money from the federal budget every year and you spend the money. You build and maintain roads. Well, that's why. Avtodor builds and maintains roads just like this town in Dagestan. And of course, they need to borrow a lot of money. Okay. The total net financial debt of these companies on the list, top 10, exceeds 20.5 trillion rubles. That equals to over $300 billion. Now, the companies borrow, and because they are either owned partially or fully by the state, most of them are owned partially, okay? But the state controls the company, and when such company borrows money, the state puts up collateral. The state property is a collateral. So those companies will have to pay, but they don't have any money. They are all in red. So it means the Russian taxpayers will pay those debts off. Now, the next news is massive layoffs. And I forecasted layoffs in the fall. Well, this is right middle of the fall, and we're seeing large industrial companies in Russia are laying people off. Well, they're doing it differently. For example, sometimes they close doors, and sometimes they try to transfer employees to part-time work. And that's hundreds of companies are doing it right now. They also send them on unpaid leave, and as the weapon of last resort, they fire them. Attempts to reduce costs at the expenses of staff have been recorded in many industries. And that is fact. That's a research done by Reuters. The industries range from railways and car manufacturing companies to metallurgy, diamond mining, and cement production. And it makes perfect sense. Russians' disposable incomes are shrinking, so they buy less of everything. And the construction industry in deep crisis, cement production is down. Russian Railways, for example, asked employees of its central office to take 3 additional days off per month, unpaid. That's right, unpaid. Um, well, um, it's not laying off. It's basically transferring them to part-time work. Okay. Now, that's 3 days unpaid days off, in addition to federal holidays and non-working days, regular working days. Now, there are large companies: Горьковский автомобильный завод ГАЗ, Волжский автомобильный завод ВАЗ, and КамАЗ, Камский автомобильный завод, the large manufacturers of passenger cars and trucks, commercial vehicles. As announced, and I talked about it back in August, they announced that they would put their employees to 4-day week starting September, early October. These all switched to 4-day work week. GAS has stopped working on 5-day week schedule. It continues, basically. It plans to stop in October, but they haven't stopped yet, GAS. Other companies also maintain 4-day week, but they have no plans of bringing the staff back to 5-day work week. Since October 1st, the largest cement producer, Temros, Цемент Рос, российский цемент, Цемрос, has switched to 4-day week. Now, another news from another industry: diamond producer Alrosa, that's Russia's only diamond producer that belongs to the state. It has cut salaries of all employees that are non-mining by 10% and suspended operations in less profitable fields until spring and summer. The company told, when asked, it was seeking to minimize layoffs without specifying how many people were still affected by the cuts. Now, the next industry is pulp and paper. Sveza Group, it's a huge company. It has a large number of different mills and carton plants, plywood plants, and so forth. So the Sveza Group it's in trouble, by the way, in big trouble. Its debt has been restructured. It defaulted. Before defaulting on its debt, the banks came in and restructured. Huge deal. Okay, I think Vladimir Putin himself supervising, because Sveza is on the verge of collapse. So Sveza Group of companies closed 2 main plywood mill altogether, laid 300 people due to the lack of demand. Now, the next plant of Sveza is, we're going to be waiting who the next is. Metallurgical industry. There's a source inside industry that says there's a quiet reduction in the industry. Now, metallurgy has been in crisis for quite some time. Remember St. Petersburg International Economic Forum back in July? The CEO of the largest metallurgical plant in Russia basically spoke publicly, said that all metallurgical plants are facing complete closure. So the source inside the industry now says there's a quiet reduction in the industry. The largest enterprises have not yet switched to 4-day week, but almost all metalworking plants have reduced support staff. Layoffs. There are too many employees in the industry for the current situation. The companies want to avoid mass layoffs, but they don't know how. Well, it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. What happens when a company starts losing money? The first move is usually to start cutting expenses, and the biggest expense is payroll. So they start laying off employees. And we're seeing just like that in Russia, and certainly doesn't come as a surprise to me. This is one more phase of the economic demise of Russia, the economic tsunami that I've been talking about for the past 3.5 years. And then the next news is very troubling, I should say, for Russian economy. Not so troubling for me, for Ukraine, for the world. It has stood out. That's why I've picked up this news, and I'm making sure that you know that too. Now, some of you might know the name Uralvagonzavod. It's Russia's largest manufacturer of tanks. Most modern tanks. Well, I take it's one of the world's largest manufacturer of tanks. Now, Uralvagonzavod just announced that it transfers its employees to 4-day work week. Not all employees, just those who produce civil products. Not military products, but civil products. Uralvagonzavod made a statement saying that everything is fine in the military department. The tanks are still being produced and all. And all the employees who are being transferred to 4-day week, that's basically 20% cut in their pay. Probably more than that. It's just base pay, and then on top of that, the bonuses are cut and so forth. For example, Avtovaz is the company who cut the manufacturer of Ladas. They cut the week from 5 days to 4 days. Average pay at Avtovaz before the cut was 100 from 110 to 120, somewhere in between 1,000 rubles. Now, after they were transferred to 4 days week. That's 20% less, right? Well, not really, not in Avtovaz. 50. From 120 to 50. Okay? That's what usually happens. Now, Uralvagonzavod transferring all its employees that don't make tanks to 4 weeks. But it also says, you know what, no worries. Those employees who would like to transfer to the military department where they actually make tanks can do that. But you know what? Uralvagonzavod, I think they're lying. They're not telling us the truth, because if it was the case, no, I haven't heard it anywhere. Okay, this is I'm trying to connect the dots. If it was the case, if all the employees whose days were cut short were it was such an it'd be such an easy transfer, then I mean people don't like to earn less. They seek better position, better pay. They would flock into the part where they make tanks. But they don't. They are forced to stay and work 4 days a week. It means that the tank production is working to full capacity, perhaps even not as much as it was working before. So that spells troubles at Uralvagonzavod. Not big troubles, but now we understand that even in the very heart of Russia's military-industrial complex, there are troubles. Because of this falling economy, because of this demise, because of exactly what I've been talking about. Now, next industry is banking. Banking. I always talk about banking. It's going to be big when Russian banks will start closing the doors. The first one, the bank with on the list of Russia's largest bank, number 62, got bust. So that's Тавrichesky Bank in Crimea closed the doors, and thousands of people lost their money, and hundreds of companies lost their money. But 62nd largest bank. Now, what's happening in banking? In the last week, Russian banks sharply, this information came the last week, but it really happened in September. Russian banks sharply cut back on issuing credit cards in September, with lenders approving 1.29 million cards, 1,290,000 credit cards worth a total credit of 141 billion rubles. That's roughly $2 trillion. The number of new cards fell 12% month to month in September, while the total credit limit plunged by 35%. And that is the steepest monthly decline in 4 years. The average credit limit on new cards also fell by 40,000 rubles, about $500. Not that much, but if you consider that's the average for all Russians who got the credit cards, that's a considerable amount. So basically, the credit limit on new cards fell combined to, now it fell by 40,000 rubles to average credit limit for Russians of 109,000 rubles. And that's $1,300. So basically, average Russian has a credit card with a limit of $1,300. And that is the lowest since April of 2024. And these are more signs of troubles, because when the economy is stable, when the economy is growing, the banks are trying to give out as many credit cards as possible. Now, because they make more money that way. Now, they start declining people. They start lowering the credit limit. They start giving people less money. Why is that so? Because they find the credit's too risky. They find that the risks are too high that people will not pay back credit card payments. They will default the loans, the default credit card payments. And that just kind of gives us the general understanding of what's happening in Russia. In my eyes, they are big signs of troubles. Declining disposable incomes of people will bring all industries down. The sales will go down because people will simply won't be able to afford as much. They'll be saving, pinching pennies. And then this is it. Businesses will be downsizing or closing. They'll be paying less taxes. They'll employ fewer people, more unemployed, and so forth. So to me, these are signs of big, big troubles. The next news is, a little personal, friends. It's a good news. Despite being pressured by the Russian state, followed by the secret police KGB, and demonetized by Google for no good reason, I am still here. I am breathing. Shaken, not broken. I will go on. You have my promise on that. Thank you very much for your precious time, for support, for prayers and love. Thank you for coffees you buy me at buymecoffee.com. Thank you for PayPal and Patreon. The financial support is never required, but much, much appreciated and needed these days. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, as usual, there's one positive news. There's one industry in Russia that's still doing fabulously. It is funeral industry. They have many new customers these days, and last week brought them thousands. Now, the third part of the report. Enough with microeconomic analysis. Now, let's move to macroeconomic indicators, macro stuff. The general health of Russian economy. Now, again, I'll try to be very brief here. Now, GDP growth. I was doing this report, compiling, going through data, and something caught my attention. Now, Russian government has been saying that the growth of Russian economy is forecasted at 1%, which is not much at all. At least it's not decline. 1% is still in black, not in red. Now, all Russian government agencies, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Economic Development, the central bank, everyone's been forecasting that 1%. Now, what 1% growth of GDP we're talking about? If services PMI is so down, now it's at the lowest of 46.6%. Whatever below 50 is recession. 46.6 is way below 50. It is recession. This PMI service index, we talked about it that a few minutes before. Recession. Russian businesses combined, when they ask what's going on in their industries, they give very grim picture. And these are companies and these are people who are on the ground, who working with customers, who deal with people and their partners, contractors, subcontractors, customers every single day. They say it's down the drain. So real GDP growth, it's not going to be growth. It's going to be decline in 2025. Well, you know what? It's amusing. We're going to be waiting for Russian government. What kind of number it'll draw us on the board to show? Is it going to be 1%, 0.5%, or what? I don't think they will come out with a red number. I don't think they will show us the negative growth. So mark my words, please. But I just connected two dots. Services PMI and GDP. Very interesting. And the last but not least is recession. Oh, I'm sorry. Inflation. Speaking too much, Inflation. That's one of the key macroeconomic indicators. And inflation grew last week. Well, you know what? It jumped, really. It jumped by 0.25% in just 1 week. It's the highest jump since this spring. There are multiple reasons for such jump. Two main reasons are this week. I'm not talking about general. There's so many of them, but this week, two main reasons. Seasonal increase in prices of harvested soft commodities. In other words, food in the summer, the prices decrease due to increased supply. Harvest time. Now the fall is halfway through and the winter is coming. And in Russia, in a lot of parts of Russia, it's already snow on the ground, so it's cold. It's basically winter already. And the prices for most produce and for other foods are going back up. They are increasing. And that drove, the seasonal decrease in prices that we saw like 3 months ago. It drove prices down and that it slowed down inflation. But now it's back to its normal. So inflation is back up due to increasing food prices. And the second, and it's major reason, gasoline prices. Now, you all know what's been happening in the last weeks. Numerous strikes on oil refineries have placed 20 oil refineries out of operation, most of them partially. What happens when the supply shrinks? And I've heard of a quarter of supply has shrunk in Russia. of fuel, diesel fuel and gasoline. What happens when supply shrinks? Prices go up. It is supply and demand curve, supply and demand rule. Any economics school freshman who is studying economics 101 would tell you that. I mean, we all know that. Fuel prices influence everything. And I mean everything. Anything that is produced in Russia or transported in Russia. So, hello, higher prices. And you know what happens when the prices go up? And they're going to go up a lot from now on because the strikes continue. They're executed every single day. In the situation, the output keeps on falling. So, and the prices will go up and up and up. And you know what happens after that? The next step? Shortages will come. They're already knocking on the doors. Now, friends, at this point, I'm asking you a big favor. If you liked this report, please hit the like button. And if you are watching it and not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe now. Because every single day, I come up with information from Russia. And a lot of that information you will not find in the mainstream news media. Every single Wednesday, I come up with another episode of this series, Russia's Economic Weekly Review. And every Friday or weekend, I come up with a video that sums up significant news of Russia. So please like this video right now, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and consider becoming Patreon, because if you want to take it one step further or 10 steps further, then you will find lots of information that you will not find anywhere else at Inside Russia Patreon account. Every single day, I carefully select 9 news that I find significant of Russia or from Russia and make them available to patrons. So if you want to keep up with everything Russia, all the news Russia, breaking news, you know where to look. Patreon account of Inside Russia. I'm going to place the link down below in the description to this video and in the pinned comment that I'm going to do right after I am done with this live stream. And this is my message for today. I will keep my eyes open. Thank you very much for coming and watching. Carthago delenda est. I'll see you next time.